Hey, check it out. There's a fingernail in the sky. 5:04 a.m., 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Schuylkill River. The sounds of the crickets fill my ears. What's poppin', people? It's Dante. Today I'm walking along my favorite location in the city of Philadelphia, the Schuylkill River. And just listen to the sounds of the bugs right now. It's so nice and soothing. You know, there's something really special about dawn, right? This time around an hour before the sun rises. I find this to be a really great time to go for a walk because the weather is so nice and cool. You get this crisp breeze, you know, at around 64 degrees. I'm kind of chilly, you know, like I got a long sleeve on, I got my pants on, you know, but it feels nice. And yeah, I'm in the dark right now, you know. It almost, like, if you didn't know what time it is from me describing, it almost would, you know, you could maybe think it's nighttime right now. I don't know. It's kind of nice though. Yeah, I'm not much of a night person. You know, I'm very much an early riser. I'd say for around 20 months straight, I've been rising before the sunrise. And like, I've never missed a sunrise in almost 2 years now, I'd say. Yeah, around 2 years, I haven't missed a sunrise. And I think this is really important. I think this is something that keeps me lusting for life, right? Catching the sunrise, being in tune with my body, my physiology, you know, my circadian rhythm. You know, setting my circadian rhythm has taught me that time is an illusion. You know, where we get caught up with rising with alarms, you know, going to sleep at certain times. But frankly, if you just wait for the sun to set, you know, once the sun's down, basically as soon as, like, I keep my window open when I'm sleeping, and as soon as I notice the sun is completely down and it gets dim and there's only like it kind of looks like this but at night, yeah, my eyes and my body just shut down completely and I fall right asleep. And then I rise at 4 a.m. once you see just a little bit of light peering above the horizon, and it just feels really nice knowing that I don't need to depend on alarms, and that I'm catching the sunrise, and I'm getting really good sleep. And yeah, maybe first and foremost we should focus on our sleep in order to increase our power. Yeah, I've been thinking about the physical a lot recently. I believe that physicality is supreme. Just being outside, walking, standing upright. You know, it's no coincidence that human beings are bipedal. You know, we have 2 legs, we move around. And I believe that we are designed to be outside, and specifically in nature, right? And so as a child, I grew up just close by, right? Maybe 5 miles that way up the river. And yeah, I grew up in these neighborhoods, Roxborough and Andorra, which is it's basically right next to Manayunk. And a lot of times I tell people I'm from Manayunk because most people know that, maybe don't know Andorra as much. But Roxborough and Manayunk, they're kind of connected. They're right next to each other. And Manayunk means where we go to drink. And the Lenape tribe, I guess in their language, right? I think it's in their language, the Lenape tribe. I think it's the native language. Manayunk, Schuylkill, Hidden Creek. And yeah, so the Wissahickon Forest, yeah, it was basically in my backyard. A little bunny just hopped around. And I spent a lot of my youth building teepees and forts and bridges and exploring caves and climbing hills and mountains and discovering totem poles and sharpening spears and attempting to hunt deer and sort of playing like a Native American when I was a little boy. And I'm reminded of William Penn and his plan to make this city a green country town, right? This green city filled with parks, where we have 4 very specific parks scattered throughout the city, from Logan Square, Washington Square, Rittenhouse Square. You know, there's various parks. We have Fairmount Park, the Schuylkill River. I recently went to Penn Treaty Park, where William Penn and the Lenape tribe made a peace treaty, a peace agreement, to purchase the land and create the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and create Philadelphia. And what's interesting about the natives, to my understanding, they didn't believe anyone owned land. They believed that God owned the land, right? The ownership to them was God, you know, and they inhabited the land. But then once the guys with the top hats came and purchased the land, you know, that's when the grid of William Penn was implemented, right? But alas, we have these green spaces, right, where I thrive, and I believe is where we naturally, you know, in nature, maybe we are designed to be in the forest, in a green space. But over time, we've kind of slowly but surely knocked down more and more trees, implemented more and more of these high-rises and things. As you see, they're being built across the skyline here. And we live in these little boxes. We go to work in little boxes. We start to use air conditioning. Our skin and our immune system weaken. Maybe our physical bodies decay at a rapid rate. We see more obesity. The foods that we create are produced in these factories, and things become processed, and we start to drive these funny cars everywhere, and maybe we become more disconnected as a community, or as I like to call it, a tribe, right? Thinking of the Lenape tribe. And yeah, perhaps in order to thrive in the modern world, we must remain connected to our natural sort of biological needs, such as clean water, fresh air, walking, and sunlight. You know, the simple things kind of go a long way. And maybe the more and more we advance technologically, the more and more we stray from this nature. And yeah, so each and every morning I go for a walk here. I love starting my day with a walk. And yeah, specifically on this trail, because I'm by a body of water, and then by the time I reach the Philadelphia Museum of Art, I can stand on top of a cliff, go for this little hike, and I can see beyond the horizon. And there's something about that that fuels me with this abundant feeling and power. And yeah, I love watching the colors of the sky change over time, right? As I go for my walk, it gets a little bit brighter and brighter as I head towards the view. And sometimes there's clouds, sometimes it's a clear sky. And I always bring my camera with me to paint with light, to draw with light. I believe photography, you know, in Greek, I believe it's phos, meaning light, graphia, meaning drawing. Actually, I recently purchased some charcoal, some vine charcoal, and a sketchbook, and I'm gonna try to start drawing nature. I'm gonna start trying to make pictures of trees and leaves and things, and try to get into the more physical mediums. I have never been good at drawing, and I'd like to learn, so we'll see how that goes. But I think as photographers, right, thinking of the instant sketch, this to me is the power of the medium, right? Where I am walking outside in the open world, treating this world as my canvas, and the camera gives me this superpower, this ability to find meaning in the mundane, and I become more connected to the fleeting moments. And so yeah, I'm passing by this 676, right? 76, this little highway here. And you know, it reminds me that frankly, I'm 28 years old. I've never owned a car. I've barely ever driven a car. I have my license, of course, and like I've driven before, but honestly, I probably have only driven a car a couple of times. You know, when you live in a city, you just don't need a car. You don't need to drive. There really is no need for it, and I frankly have no desire for it. You know, you hear notions that having a car is freedom and blah blah blah, it makes you independent to go here and there. The more I think about it, I think it's the opposite. I think you become enslaved to this car. You become enslaved to the things that you own. And freedom to me is just walking endlessly. And the great thing about the city is how walkable it is. And so I find that while I grew up in the suburbs and had the opportunity to explore nature and have this great childhood of biking, like I remember biking and knocking on my neighbor's door and like playing manhunt and, you know, having Nerf gun fights, playing fun games on the street with acorns, climbing trees, like really classic childhood experience in the suburbs. And I think it's a great place to grow up, honestly. You know, I went to a Catholic school. You know, I grew up going to chapel in the morning, praying, learning about our founding fathers, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, learning about, you know, Native Americans and different tribes, learning about history, science, theology, like just different things. And it was a really great childhood overall, I'd say, to live and grow up in the suburbs. But then as I get older, right, and went to high school, we moved down here towards maybe around the end of high school. And I think I really enjoy the city more, you know, as an adult, right? There's something about the city that promotes human thriving, actually. You know, as much as I have my critiques of modernity, you know, I actually believe that being around other people is where humans thrive too. You know, as much as it is nice to be in nature, I think that having people around you, you know, the chaos of the streets is a good thing, and it's where I thrive. You know, I thrive in the chaos. You know, I find peace in it. And you know, it's just nice to see other people. You know, in the suburbs, you kind of have to knock on their door, plan to hang out, maybe see people mowing their lawns and stuff. But they're really, actually, you know, from what I imagine, there's just not much community anymore. For instance, I recently spoke with this lady who was visiting Philadelphia from North Carolina, and she was describing how she lives 30 minutes from anything, like 30 minutes from the grocery store, 30 minutes from the closest highway. She lives in like a log cabin, basically, in this very small community with a church and only a couple houses. But she described how the homeowner association, the HOA, kind of pester them, and the neighbors complain to each other. She was like describing how one of the neighbors wanted to paint their door blue, and then another neighbor told on the HOA, and they went and made them color their door back to the regular color. Like, you can't stand out, you can't do your own thing. There's so many rules and guidelines, and just hearing that occurring in these more remote neighborhoods and, you know, the South, like in North Carolina, it's just kind of alarming. It's like, yeah, maybe in general the tribe is disconnected, and yeah, even in these like small tight-knit communities, maybe it's still kind of like that. You know, the city, while we have all these cars, you know, that I believe disconnect us, there are still times like this past weekend where Broad Street closed down and we had a block party, and there was a stage with live music, different food vendors, lots of people. The streets were open for pedestrians only, and it was a really nice thing to be around, you know, people from Philly having this sort of block party celebration. Because actually Broad Street, Market Street, you know, these promenades, these streets, they were originally laid out very wide. You know, the sidewalks are wide, the streets are wide, because a part of William Penn's plan was to actually have this city to be extremely pedestrian friendly. And so if I were to recommend a city to live in, frankly, I would say Philadelphia is a really great option, and highly recommend living here. You know, even for me, like a young single guy, I mostly thrive on my own. You know, I still have childhood friends I'll meet up with, like this past weekend. But there's ways that you can thrive on your own in a city that I think it's more difficult in a suburb. Like, I can walk around and, you know, I know the security guard at the bookstore, you know, like I know the janitors, they get to know me. You know, I go into certain shops and I get to chat with the people that work there because I frequent them often. And, you know, there's this sense of community with strangers that I believe you can achieve on your own while walking around in public. And yeah, you wind up being able to thrive in solitude in a city very much. Like, it's much easier than being in a suburb or being far away, like being in a remote neighborhood or in the suburbs, which is just really nice. You know, my thought is go off the grid with your mind, but stay connected to the grid physically and with society. And yeah, there's something about the city, and especially Philadelphia, that is just so nice, and I'm just so grateful to live here. I feel like the more I live here, the more I love it. You know, maybe my favorite part of the city is an old city. You know, maybe that would be a cool place to live, near the Delaware River. We're gonna have a new park built there soon enough, in a couple of years. But if I would suggest somewhere to live near here, maybe these buildings, these apartments that are just over here. I see some of them actually right there, and they're right next to the art museum, right by the Schuylkill River. Yeah, those are just close enough to everything and just far away from the chaos that I could recommend. I'd assume that those are nice. There's like apartments right there. You can walk right onto the trail. You know, just being close to the trail I think is critical. Just having a walking path in the morning. Yeah, it's really vital in my everyday life, so I'm just glad to have this space to walk. I think Friedrich Nietzsche said, don't, you know, trust no thoughts that don't come to you while walking. Something about the connection between your muscles firing and your body moving and your brain and your connection to, you know, your thoughts that are much more clear in the grand and open outdoor space like this. You know, there's something about it. Physiology, muscles, yeah. Recently I was holding something on my shoulder, and I had a hose on my shoulder, and it slipped off, and the hose slipped off, and so because it slipped off, I grabbed it, and I started carrying it like this with my bicep flexed for maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes, probably like 2 minutes. And 2 minutes of flexing and holding a heavy object like this caused my muscle to strain. So for like the past 5 days, my bicep is strained. I've never had this occur to me before, but it's like sore when I flex. So I'm just trying to take it easy, maybe take a break from upper body movements in the gym and focus more on the lower body. So maybe I'm gonna do more squats, maybe do some body weight squats, lunges, pistol squats. I'm a fan of calisthenics, I think actually yeah, doing some sort of physical training is necessary. I maybe, if I were to suggest someone who's just getting into fitness, just buy a pair of gymnastic rings. I remember even when I lived in Zambia, Africa as a Peace Corps volunteer, when I was off the grid, I threw up a pair of gymnastic rings into the tree and I just did pull-ups and calisthenic movements outside. And that was the most fun experience I ever had working out and lifting, or just working on my fitness and stuff. And yeah, maybe lifting, you know, deadlifting and doing this sort of power lifts and things, maybe I'm just not as into it. I think I'm much more interested in longevity, and yeah, maybe simple things like walking with the Vibram 5-finger ELX, just going for long walks, focusing on posture and things like farmer's walk, where you just hold 2 heavy things on your side. Yeah, maybe you'll become less prone to injury. Like, I've never injured myself through lifting or calisthenics, but I'd assume that there's more possibilities with, you know, deadlifting and all those kind of like crazier power lifts to injure yourself. I mean, yeah, I'm more of a calisthenics fan. But yeah, some simple workflow ideas is with photography. When you look at the world as a canvas and you slow your body down and you're just walking and you're looking for, you know, things to photograph, you know, especially with street photography, we get caught up with what street photography is. You know, you have to photograph people, blah, blah, blah. Actually, my new philosophy is everything's fair game. You know, the idea is, can you create something from nothing? You know, can you find meaning in the mundane? You know, to me, that's the name of the game. Where I can walk the same lane and still find something to photograph. You know, I just know there's infinite potential. A lot of things that I see now when I'm photographing, I consider other ways in which I can use the object in the photograph for future pieces or things that I make, right? So I've been doing these photo montages with Procreate on the iPad. So if you're a street photographer, best workflow is the Ricoh GR3. If you use the small JPEGs with the high contrast all cranked to the max, just go look on my website blog on dantesisifo.com, find my Ricoh settings, camera settings, copy them, and just try it out. Like, I'd suggest try it out for a week, shoot every day for at least a week to a month, do it for a month, and just see how much more fun it is when you simplify it to light and shadow and use the small file. And the reason is that way you can import it to your iPad using a USB SD reader straight to the Photos app. It goes so fast. Like, you can import 1,000 photos so quickly in like a minute. You can cull through them quickly. And yeah, one thing I've been doing with photos that I discard or, you know, want to remix is I use the Procreate app on the iPad, and I drag some pieces from the photograph. Maybe there's a hand or like a texture, like if I photograph a texture like this, and I go to macro mode and I make a snapshot of the texture on my iPad in Procreate, I can then use the artificial intelligence where you just hover your finger over an object or over a texture or a thing in the photo, and you can drag it to the canvas in Procreate and make photo montages. So yeah, maybe it's wise to consider ourselves more as just artists, visual artists, find new ways to create things, and use photos that you create in new ways. You know, maybe that'll unlock some more potential for our photography. I think there's something about just going infinite with the possibilities of what we can create, and I found the photo montage to be a really interesting solution. And definitely this new process of me shooting this way has helped a lot. another thing is I go for these walks and make video podcasts with the GoPro Mini. I just export it to 720p, just keep the file small, and then upload it to my WordPress.org video press and Spotify podcasts and YouTube. What I do with it is, afterwards, when I walk back home on this walk, I'll open up my phone and I use the IA Writer, and I just voice dictate my thoughts like this and make little PDFs. It seems nice, you know, just using the GoPro as a way to flesh out thoughts, even if, yeah, I repeat myself or try to rehash the same old stuff. It's still interesting for me. I like to augment my voice, share it with the world. The whole point is, yeah, I think authenticity, legacy, you know, detached from the outcome, just sort of having fun. But yeah, it seems that the best time to think and the best time to write and to make things is during dawn. Yeah, I think coming to a view like this and looking out at the horizon and being up at this high elevation, it's just, I think this is objectively the most beautiful view in the city. You can see boathouses, the forest, Fairmount Park, the waterfall, the waterworks here. It's just really beautiful. We have the art museum, and you can walk to the rocky steps and look out at the skyline. So yeah, you can get two nice views in one. Yeah, it's really great place to start the day.